Here is everything I wish I knew and the mistakes I wish I didn't make before I started indoor training. Before you do anything, think about where you want to position your setup. If possible, try and be near some natural ventilation to help keep you cool. Make sure you have some power sockets nearby and try to have some sort of horizontal surface available as well, because it is incredibly handy to have somewhere to put your bottle, your phone, and some snacks. You probably already knew this one, but be prepared to spend some money. Indoor training requires a fair bit of gear. However, you can be smart about it. Smart trainers are now available at lower prices, and things like mats and fans don't have to be crazy money. Make sure you do have a fan, because this is really important for preventing overheating. There are plenty of brands selling smart fans which can be linked to your heart rate and speed. However, they can be costly, and to be totally honest, I have never linked my heart rate or speed to a fan. When I am training indoors and I'm warmed up, I want that fan on full blast non-stop. There's some great options on Amazon that cost about half as much as the well-known fans. They deliver a high volume of airflow and also come with remote controls. Be aware that indoor training is very loud. Unless you opt for a really expensive indoor training bike, then a typical turbo trainer will emit a lot of noise. I live in an apartment, so I have to be wary of my neighbours, so I like to use a training mat to help insulate some of that sound, and I've also got some old towels underneath the mat as well to further reduce those vibrations. When looking for a mat to use, don't opt for a soft yoga mat. Make sure you do actually use a proper indoor cycling mat. This is for two reasons. If the mat is too soft, then your cleats will rip it up every time that you get on and off the bike. And when you inevitably cover it in sweat, you'll want to be able to wipe it away and clean it off. Also, a good mat will help ensure that your turbo trainer doesn't shimmy around the floor when you're putting out a big effort. Because turbo trainers are loud, consider using a decent set of noise cancelling headphones. They're good for either setting a tempo to music, or it will allow you to watch something while you're riding. Or alternatively, you could just phone a friend and then you can turn your ride into a social ride. This next one is an obvious one, and I will not admit the number of times I've fallen foul of it, but make sure you keep a drink handy. I find it's incredibly easy to forget when you're at home. Also, make sure you've got some fuel handy, either some sweets, some gels, or energy bars. The same rules apply. You need to keep fueling. This next one is actually really important. Make sure you keep your handlebars covered. The salt in your sweat is corrosive, and you do not want this dripping on your bike, because if left, it will cause you some very expensive repair bills. Keep a towel handy for wiping your face. This could be the same towel that you use for covering your bars. Alternatively, use a headband. I got these headbands from Zwift, and they have a drip guard in them. They're actually really good for keeping the sweat out of your eyes. I have tried to find a more generic version of them, but so far the Zwift store is the only place I know you can actually get hold of them. They are well worth it if you don't want to be wiping your face every 20 seconds. Try not to get sucked into buying a super expensive trainer. Yes, they do look very cool and they do have some very fancy features, but options costing much less will still do a really fantastic job. The trainer I have here is from Psych Plus, and there will be a full review of it coming very soon, but its specifications will be bang on for the vast majority of riders. The sub 1000 category of smart trainers is very good, and it is packed full of different options, so don't worry about spending more than you actually need to. Not to mention, these days there are always great deals to be found, especially around Black Friday. Get yourself on a decent training platform. They add a lot of value to your ride experience, no matter what your goals are. Obviously, Zwift is very big and popular, but I prefer Ruvi. It's less expensive and I prefer the simulated reality. I won't bang on about platforms for ages because whichever you go for, it's going to be nice to either just ride around or follow a training session or actually complete an entire training plan over the course of a number of weeks. It's fair to say that most things have been thought of, and many of these platforms have done a very good job of ensuring that they are simple and easy to use. Make sure you consider what you wear. I would recommend putting on a very comfortable set of shorts. I seem to put a lot more weight through my saddle when I'm indoor training, so I find shorts with a thicker chamois are much nicer to use. On the other hand, because you do tend to put a lot more wear and tear through your shorts when indoor training, you may prefer to use an older pair of shorts, some that you don't actually mind putting a lot of abuse through. Thinking about jerseys, because I do get quite hot, I like to wear a jersey that I can strip off later on if I get too warm. Your shorts aren't the only thing that are subject to wear and tear, so choose the gear that you ride in very wisely. Make sure you're not cross-chaining. Try and use a gear right in the middle of the block, so when you're shifting up and down, the chain line is always relatively straight, mainly so you don't put excess wear through your components. And finally, be aware of erg mode. Erg mode tries to keep you at a certain power output by altering the amount of resistance dependent on your cadence. However, this can send you into an erg spiral of doom where it becomes impossible to get back on top of the gear. Some trainers are better than others in this regard as they can help you spin back up to speed before reintroducing the resistance. But I always ensure erg mode is turned off because I personally absolutely hate it. Turning it off makes it feel a lot closer to riding outdoors, in my opinion. So let me know down below if you have any questions, and if there are any super keen indoor riders watching, then please drop your advice down in the comments.